When Billionaire CEO Nathaniel Cross invited the woman he had once loved to his engagement party, he expected a quiet moment of victory, or maybe closure, or maybe the cruel little comfort of proving that he had survived her leaving. He did not expect Elena Hart to walk through the silver doors of the Grand Lydian ballroom with 3 small children beside her, all of them wearing his grey eyes like an answer no one in the room had dared to ask. The first thing Nathaniel noticed was not the children. It was Elena. 5 years had changed her in a way money could not buy. She had not become harder. She had become steadier. Her chestnut hair was pinned low at the nape of her neck. Her midnight blue dress was simple, elegant, and clearly chosen for dignity rather than attention. She paused just inside the entrance, while 100 guests turned to look at her, and she did not flinch. Then one of the little girls slipped her hand into Elena's.
"Mummy," she whispered, "is this the castle party?"
Elena bent, brushed a curl from the child's cheek, and said softly, "It's just a ballroom, sweetheart. We use our inside voices here." Nathaniel's champagne glass stopped halfway to his mouth. The little girl had his eyes. So did the boy who stood on Elena's other side, solemn in a tiny navy jacket, studying the chandeliers as if they were a business problem. So did the second girl, who had already decided the marble floor was too shiny to be trusted, and was clinging to Elena's skirt with both hands. Triplets. The word moved through Nathaniel slowly, not as a thought, but as a pressure behind his ribs. Across the ballroom, his fiancée, Vivian Lockwood, laughed at something a senator had said. Vivian was radiant in ivory silk, blonde hair smooth as champagne, diamond bracelet flashing each time she lifted her wrist. She was the kind of woman the Cross family approved of before she finished introducing herself. Correct family, correct school, correct charity boards, correct smile for cameras. Nathaniel had asked her to marry him 3 months ago on the terrace of his penthouse with half of Manhattan glittering below them. The proposal had been tasteful, private, and strategically announced the next morning by 2 newspapers and 1 financial magazine. Everyone had congratulated him as if he had closed another acquisition. He had told himself that was enough. Then Elena Hart walked into his engagement party, with 3 children who looked like him, and the room tilted. "Nathaniel?" Vivian's voice reached him through the hum of strings and conversation. "Darling, you're staring." He looked at her, but he could not make his face obey. Vivian followed his gaze. Her smile held for 1 perfect second. Then it thinned. "Is that her?" she asked. Nathaniel did not answer. He remembered writing Elena's name on the invitation list at 2 in the morning, alone in his office, while the rain blurred the city outside. He had told his assistant it was polite. She had once been part of his life, after all. He had told himself that if she came, he would see that she was ordinary now, that the ache he carried had been nostalgia, not love. He had not imagined this. Elena saw him. For 5 years, Nathaniel had wondered what her face would do if their eyes met again. Would she look guilty, angry, cold? Would she look through him, as if the 2 years they had shared had been a temporary error? She did none of those things. She looked tired. Then she lifted her chin, gave him a small nod, and guided the children toward the edge of the room, where the light was softer and the attention less sharp. His mother touched his arm. "Nathaniel," Celeste Cross murmured, "do not make a scene." Her voice had always been calm enough to freeze water. Nathaniel turned to her. Celeste wore silver satin and the Cross family pearls, her white blonde hair cut into a severe bob. She had built her life around polish, control, and the belief that emotion was a leak in the walls of good breeding. "Did you know?" he asked. Celeste's expression did not change, but something in her eyes moved. "This is not the time." The answer hit him harder than a confession. "Did you know?" he repeated. Vivian stepped closer, her smile fixed for the benefit of the room. "Nathaniel, people are watching. Let them. He set his champagne glass on a passing tray and walked away from both women. The ballroom quieted in little waves as he crossed it. The quartet kept playing, but even the music seemed to lose confidence. Nathaniel was used to attention. Attention followed him into boardrooms, airports, charity dinners, elevators. It usually felt like armor. Now it felt like glass. Elena saw him coming. Her hands tightened slightly around the children. The boy looked up at Nathaniel with grave curiosity. "Are you the man from the picture?" he asked. Elena closed her eyes for half a second. Nathaniel stopped. "What picture?" he asked, though his voice barely sounded like his own. The boy reached into the pocket of his jacket and produced a small folded drawing. Not a photograph, a child's drawing, done in colored pencil, of a tall man in a black suit, standing beside a woman in blue, and 3 small figures under a yellow sun. The man had grey eyes. The label beneath him said, in careful block letters, "Maybe Dad." The ballroom became a tunnel around Nathaniel. The little girl with the curls tugged on Elena's hand. "Mummy said maybe means we don't ask too loud." Nathaniel looked at Elena. "How old are they?" "4, she said. 4. They'll be 5 in August." He heard someone behind him whisper. He heard Vivian say his name, not softly now, but with warning. He heard his mother take one slow breath. He heard his own heart in his ears. "Their names?" he asked. Elena's mouth trembled once before she steadied it. "Grace, Miles, and Sophie." The shy girl peeked from behind Elena's skirt. "I'm Sophie." Nathaniel crouched before he had decided to move. The guests blurred above him, a glittering ring of judgment, but the children were suddenly level with him. Grace had a bow in her hair and a direct stare. Miles held the drawing like evidence. Sophie watched his cufflinks with suspicion. "Hello, Sophie," Nathaniel said carefully. "I'm Nathaniel." "That's a long name," Grace said. "It is." "Do you have snacks?" A laugh broke from somewhere in the crowd, quickly smothered. For the first time since Elena entered, Nathaniel breathed. "I believe this party has a ridiculous number of snacks," he said. "Most of them too small to be trusted." Grace considered him. "Tiny sandwiches?" "Tiny sandwiches." Miles looked at Elena. "Can we have one tiny sandwich, Mummy?" Elena's eyes were bright, but her voice was calm. "In a minute." Nathaniel stood. "Elena, may I speak with you privately?" Vivian arrived before Elena could answer. She placed a manicured hand on Nathaniel's sleeve, the gesture elegant and proprietary. "Of course she may speak with you," Vivian said, smiling at Elena in a way that made the smile feel like a blade without naming it one. "Old friends deserve a moment. Perhaps after the toast?" Elena looked at Vivian, then at the diamond ring on Vivian's hand. "Congratulations," she said. The word was gracious. That made it worse. Vivian's smile sharpened. "Thank you. It is a very meaningful evening for both families." "I'm sure." Nathaniel heard the conversation as if from another room. He was still looking at the children, at Miles's chin, at Grace's left eyebrow, which arched exactly like his when she was skeptical, at Sophie's quiet habit of rubbing her thumb over her knuckle, the same motion Nathaniel made under conference tables when he wanted to hide his nerves. He had missed 4 years. No, he corrected himself with a sudden, sick clarity. He might have been kept from 4 years. "Elena," he said, "please." She studied him for a long moment. "All right," she said, "but the children stay with me." "Of course." Celeste stepped into their path. "This is inappropriate," she said quietly. "Nathaniel, the governor is waiting for the toast. Vivian's father is waiting. This can be handled later." Elena went still. Nathaniel looked at his mother. "Handled?" Celeste's chin lifted. Privately. You mean hidden? A murmur moved through the guests. Vivian's hand slipped from his sleeve. Nathaniel had negotiated with billionaires who smiled while trying to strip companies for parts. He had sat across from federal investigators, international investors, furious founders, and men who confused wealth with strength. He had never felt as unprepared as he did in front of one woman and 3 children at his own engagement party. But he knew one thing. He would not let Elena stand alone in that room. "The family lounge," he said to the nearest staff member. "Please have sandwiches, fruit, and juice brought there. Nothing with nuts. And could someone find 3 coloring books?" Grace brightened. "I like horses." "Horses," Nathaniel told the staff member solemnly. "If possible." The staff member nodded, as if this were the most important instruction issued in the ballroom all evening. Elena looked at Nathaniel then. Really looked at him. And for a second, the past stood between them. A rainy bookstore in Boston, a coffee stain on his white shirt, her laughter, his hand reaching for hers before he had learned to be careful with joy. Then Sophie yawned, and the spell broke. The family lounge was panelled in pale oak and lined with cream sofas that looked too expensive for children, which meant Grace immediately climbed onto one with both shoes until Elena gave her a look. Miles sat at the low table, smoothing his drawing with both palms. Sophie chose the corner nearest the lamp and whispered to the silk shade, as if it might be nervous too. Nathaniel stood by the closed door, feeling too tall, too formal, too much like a stranger in his own life. "You can sit," Elena said. He sat. No board meeting had ever made him so aware of his hands. For a few minutes, there were only small sounds. Plates arriving, juice being poured. Grace asking whether adults at castle parties always talked this much. Miles counting the gold buttons on Nathaniel's jacket. Sophie eating one strawberry with great seriousness. Elena helped each child without fuss. Napkin on Grace's lap. Juice moved away from Miles's elbow. Sophie's hair tucked behind her ear. She had always been gentle, but this was different. This was practiced love. This was the choreography of a woman who had carried 3 little lives through every ordinary day, without expecting applause. Nathaniel watched her and felt something inside him crack open. "I wrote to you," she said quietly. He looked up. Elena kept her eyes on Sophie's plate. 3 letters. One when I first found out about the babies, one after the first doctor confirmed there were 3, one after they were born. I went to your office twice. I was told you were unavailable and that all personal communication should go through your family attorney. Nathaniel's throat tightened. I never received any letters. I know that now. You know? She gave a small, humorless smile. Your mother spoke to me tonight, before you crossed the room. The room seemed to lose air. What did she say? That the children had a generous trust available if I signed a private acknowledgement and left before the photographers noticed. Nathaniel closed his eyes. Across the table, Miles looked up. Did Grandma say something mean? Elena touched his hand. Grown-up conversation, sweetheart. Grace leaned toward Nathaniel. Mummy says grown-up conversations are boring because people use too many words. Your mummy is correct, Nathaniel said, though his voice was rough. Elena's mouth softened for one brief second. It almost undid him. Why didn't you call me? He asked. The softness disappeared. I did. Elena? I called your old number. It was disconnected. I called your office and was transferred to someone who told me you had instructed your staff not to accept personal calls. I sent email to the address you used when we were together. It bounced. I came in person with 2 envelopes and left both at reception. I waited in the lobby for 3 hours. Nathaniel remembered that year with a sudden, ugly precision. His father stepping down after the accounting scandal that had nearly broken Crosswell. His mother taking over all personal scheduling because, she said, he needed focus. His move to a new phone, new office, new staff, new life, all while he buried himself under 18-hour days and told himself Elena had chosen silence. "I thought you left because you were tired of me choosing work," he said. She looked at him then. "I was tired of begging to be chosen," she said. "But I did not leave to punish you. I left because I had to build a calm life before the babies arrived." The word babies sat between them gently, without shame. Nathaniel looked at the children. Grace was arranging cucumber sandwiches into towers. Miles had started drawing again, this time adding a chandelier. Sophie had tucked a strawberry into a napkin for later, which Nathaniel found so painfully practical that he almost smiled. "What do they know?" he asked. "That they have a father. That he and I loved each other once. That adults can make mistakes. That maybe one day we would know more. You didn't tell them I abandoned them." Her eyes flashed. "I would never put that on them." He deserved the rebuke. He accepted it. "Thank you," he said. Elena looked away first. For years, Nathaniel had built his life around winning. Quarterly growth, market share, elegant deals, the right apartment, the right suit, the right woman beside him at the right gala. Yet in that lounge, with juice boxes and tiny sandwiches on a polished table, every victory seemed thin enough to tear. "I want to be in their lives," he said. Elena's shoulders tightened. "That is not a sentence you get to say once at a party." "I know." "No, Nathaniel, you don't." Her voice stayed low, but every word had weight. "They are not an emotional revelation. They are 3 children who need breakfast, bedtime, school forms, dentist appointments, patience, and consistency. They need someone who shows up when it is inconvenient and unglamorous. They need someone who knows Grace pretends to be bold when she is unsure, that Miles asks questions when he is overwhelmed, and that Sophie hides snacks because she worries good things vanish." Nathaniel looked at Sophie, who immediately placed one hand over her napkin bundle. "I didn't see anything," he said. Sophie narrowed her eyes. "You looked." "A terrible misunderstanding," Grace giggled. Miles studied him with cautious approval. Elena's face softened despite herself, and Nathaniel felt the smallest, most undeserved hope. Then the door opened. Vivian stood outside with Celeste behind her and a photographer hovering a few steps back, pretending not to listen. "Nathaniel," Vivian said, no longer smiling, "the toast is now 20 minutes late." Elena rose at once. The children reacted to her movement like little birds noticing weather. Grace slid down from the sofa. Miles folded his drawing. Sophie tucked the strawberry napkin into her tiny purse. Nathaniel stood too. "Vivian, I need more time." "No," she said. "You need perspective." He looked at her. Vivian was composed, beautiful, and humiliated in a way he had not intended but could not pretend away. "You're right," he said. "You deserved honesty before tonight." Her eyes flickered. "Do not make me noble in front of your former girlfriend and 3 children," she said. "I'm not auditioning for Grace." Elena said quietly, "I can go." "No," Nathaniel said. One word. Too sharp. Too late. Celeste stepped forward. "You are turning a family celebration into gossip." Nathaniel laughed once, without humor. "Mother, you offered money to the mother of my children and asked her to leave through a side door." Vivian went very still. The photographer lowered his camera. Celeste's cheeks colored. "I offered support. You offered silence." Grace whispered, "Mommy, why is everyone mad at Nana Silver?" Elena pressed her lips together. Nathaniel glanced at Grace. That is a fair name, but perhaps not tonight. Grace nodded seriously. Okay. Even Vivian nearly smiled. Nearly. Then her expression closed again. What are you going to do? She asked Nathaniel. It should have been an impossible question. An hour earlier, he had been ready to toast a future shaped by alliances, photographs, and polite affection. Now 3 children were watching him with variations of his own face, and Elena was standing with the rigid calm of someone prepared to leave before she could be rejected again. Nathaniel looked at Vivian. I am going to tell the truth. Vivian absorbed that with a slow breath. Then start with me, she said. So he did. He asked Elena to remain in the lounge with the children for a few minutes, then walked with Vivian into a smaller anteroom. The city shone beyond the windows, polished and distant, exactly like the life they had almost chosen together. Vivian removed her engagement ring and held it in her palm. I thought I could marry you, she said. I thought I could marry you too. That may be the saddest thing about us. He accepted the truth of it. Her father had wanted alliance. His mother had wanted image. Vivian had wanted stability. Nathaniel had wanted quiet. And her? Vivian asked. I loved her, he said. I don't think I stopped. Vivian looked toward the closed door. Then do not run to her as if romance fixes character. If those children are yours, become worthy slowly. Learn their middle names. Bring snacks you chose yourself. Apologize until the apology has roots. Nathaniel bowed his head. I will tell my father the engagement ended by mutual agreement, Vivian said, placing the ring on the window ledge. And you will tell your mother I am not a prop she can return to the shelf. I will. At the door, Vivian paused. The little shy one took a strawberry in her purse. The staff should pack more for the ride home. That small kindness made his chest ache. Thank you. Don't waste it, Vivian said, and walked back toward the ballroom. Then he returned to the lounge. Elena was kneeling by Sophie, helping her buckle one tiny shoe. Miles had fallen asleep against the sofa. Grace insisted she was still doing party research, though her eyes were closing. We're leaving, Elena said. I know. May I walk you to the car? The photographers. Then I'll handle myself better this time. She studied him, then allowed him to carry Miles. The boy's cheek settled against Nathaniel's shoulder, warm and trusting in sleep, and the contact shook him more than any applause ever had. He trusts before he decides to, Elena said softly. I won't make him regret it. They left through a service hallway. At the private entrance, 2 photographers waited anyway. Nathaniel stepped in front of Elena and the children. No photographs of the children, he said. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The cameras lowered, and Elena looked at his back as if she had expected a fight and received a door instead. Her old blue sedan waited under the awning among black town cars. Nathaniel saw the booster seats, the folded blanket, the sticker on the rear window, the entire invisible architecture of Elena's days. He buckled Miles in slowly under her instruction. Grace told him he needed practice. Sophie gave him the strawberry from her purse because, she said, he looked sad. Elena closed the rear door and turned to him. I don't know what happens next. Neither do I. I need to protect their routine. No sudden announcements, no photographers, no gifts that overwhelm them. And if you disappear because this becomes inconvenient, I will not explain you twice. I won't disappear. Promises are easy at midnight. Then let me make one for tomorrow morning. He took out his phone, then paused. May I have your number? She gave him a look. Right, he said. Bad phrasing. For the first time, Elena almost smiled. She recited the number, and he entered it himself. No assistant. No forwarded message. No distance. They agreed on 10 the next morning, after breakfast cleanup and Grace's usual argument about socks. Before Elena got into the car, she stopped. I did love you. I know. No, she whispered. I don't think you did. Not then. She drove away before he could answer, carrying 3 sleeping children and the only woman who had ever made him feel seen without being impressed. Behind him, his engagement party continued, without its engagement. The next morning, Nathaniel woke in a penthouse that suddenly felt too polished to be lived in. Sophie's strawberry still sat on the counter, wrapped in a napkin from the Grand Lydian. At 7, he called an attorney and asked for someone who understood cooperation, not war. At 7:15, he cleared his morning. At 7:30, Celeste arrived uninvited and found him reading about predictable routines for preschool children. This is not a strategy, she said. No, it is reading. He told her the rules before she could turn Elena into a problem to manage. No contact unless Elena invited it. No money offered as pressure. No reputation plan built around hiding children. If anyone asked, the answer was simple. This was a private family matter, and the children were not public figures. Celeste stared at him. You will throw away a merger alliance over an old romance? No, he said. I am refusing to make a family decision as if it were a merger. His mother warned him that moral clarity became bills, headlines, school meetings, and inconvenience. The words cut because they were not entirely unfair. Then I will learn, he said. At 10 exactly, he called Elena. Their first real conversation in 5 years was not romantic. It was practical. She told him about the preschool in Queens, Grace's brave horse stories, Miles's love of maps, Sophie's smooth stones, bedtime routines, school forms, and the Community Arts Foundation where Elena managed budgets, events, and after-school programs with the calm competence Nathaniel remembered from the years when she had helped him understand people better than spreadsheets. Nathaniel wrote everything down on paper. You own 6 tech companies and you're using paper? Elena asked. Paper feels harder to accidentally forward to my mother. There was a pause. Then Elena laughed, small and brief, but real. That Saturday, he met them at Riverside Park. He arrived early in shoes chosen with unnecessary seriousness. Grace inspected them and said, Good? Miles studied his face as if comparing him to a map. Sophie carried a purple backpack shaped like a star. The hour humbled him. He learned that pushing a swing required rhythm, not power. That Miles liked to be asked before being lifted. That Sophie would cross the rope bridge only if Elena went first. And that Grace had no patience for adults who gasped. You are internally gasping, Elena told him, when Grace reached the top of the climbing dome. Is that visible? Very. By the end, his sweater had grass on one elbow, his coffee was cold, and Miles had judged his office inadequate because the map had no trains. When the children ran to the sandbox, Nathaniel apologized without hiding behind work, crisis, or his mother. I let my life become unreachable, he said. Even if I never received the letters, I built the walls that made that possible. Elena watched him carefully. That is the first apology you have given me that didn't contain the word but. I am trying to retire the word. Her mouth curved, and the curve stayed with him all week. Nathaniel did not transform overnight. He missed one scheduled call because an investor meeting ran long, and Elena's voice was calm, but distant when he called later. I'm sorry, he said. You said 10. I know. They waited near the phone. The sentence lodged in him. It won't happen again. Don't promise. Adjust. So he adjusted. He moved standing calls. He blocked family time on his calendar under the label unavailable and told his chief of staff that the label meant exactly that. He learned preschool pickup procedures. He learned the difference between Grace's brave voice and her frightened one, though she insisted she had no frightened voice. He learned that Miles asked why in layers, and the fourth why was usually the real one. He learned that Sophie warmed slowly, then gave loyalty with both hands. He also learned that Elena's life was a masterpiece of stretched minutes. One Thursday evening, he arrived at the Community Arts Foundation to return a forgotten stuffed rabbit. He expected to hand it over and leave. Instead, he found Elena in the middle of a budget crisis, a volunteer shortage, and 20 children painting cardboard cityscapes while a ceiling leak dripped into a plastic bin. She was everywhere at once. No, Liam, glitter is not a food group. Maya, beautiful bridge, but let's keep it on your paper. Mrs. Alvarez, I can call the repair company again, but if I use my sharp voice, they may stop answering. Nathaniel, why are you holding a rabbit like it owes you money? He looked down at the rabbit. It has a suspicious face. 3 children laughed. Elena shook her head, but there was warmth in it. He stayed, not because anyone asked him to, because there were paper towels to fetch, tables to move, parents to greet, and one little boy whose cardboard tower kept falling. Nathaniel Cross, whose signature could move markets, spent 40 minutes learning that tape stuck better when pressed at the corners. At the end, Elena found him crouched beside Miles, who had joined the group and was explaining train tunnels to 2 older children. You missed a board dinner, she said. I sent regrets. For cardboard? For infrastructure. She laughed under her breath. Then the ceiling dripped into the bin with a hollow plunk, and they both looked up. The foundation needs a new space, Nathaniel said. Elena's expression changed immediately. No. I haven't offered anything yet. Your face offered 3 things and a grant committee. My face is generous. Your face is used to solving discomfort with money. He accepted that because it was partly true. Then tell me the right way, he said. She folded her arms. The right way is not swooping in. The right way is listening to what the families need, respecting the staff who kept this place alive, and building something that does not turn us into a photo opportunity. Nathaniel looked around the room. The taped cardboard, the tired parents, the children proud of crooked skylines, Elena's handwritten schedule on the wall. Then teach me, he said. Elena blinked. You really mean that? Yes. You are a difficult man to stay angry at when you are carrying a glitter cup. He looked at the cup in his hand. Is that what this is? I thought it was morale. She laughed again, and this time it filled the room. The public found out 2 weeks later, not through Nathaniel or Elena, but through a guest who turned the engagement party into a vague gossip item. By noon, reporters had gathered outside Crosswell headquarters. By 3, Vivian's cancelled engagement was being discussed with a confidence no stranger had earned. By 5, Elena called him once. There are people outside my building, she said. No uniforms, no drama. The children think we're playing rainy day picnic. It's not raining. They are 4. Details are flexible. He wanted to apologize, but he remembered what she had asked of him. Action first, guilt later. Within an hour, the reporters were gone because his legal team issued clear privacy notices, and his security director handled the building quietly. Nathaniel arrived only after Elena said he could. He found her in her small kitchen, making grilled cheese sandwiches, while Grace, Miles, and Sophie sat under a blanket tent in the living room. Elena looked exhausted, but when she said, "Our job is to keep our family calm," color touched her cheeks at the word "our." Nathaniel did not reach for it. He washed his hands and cut the sandwiches into triangles, because Grace insisted triangles tasted faster. When Sophie placed a blue napkin beside his bowl, Elena whispered, "That means she approves." "They like you," Elena said after the children went back to their documentary. "They are easy to love," he answered, before caution could stop him. Then he set down the serving spatula and added, I don't mean to claim what I haven't earned. I mean, every time I leave, the world feels less correct. Elena looked down. That is a dangerous thing to say to someone who spent years making the world work without you. I know. Do you? I'm learning the difference between wanting a place and earning one. From the living room, Grace called, Mommy, Miles says penguins are business birds because they stand in groups. Nathaniel leaned toward the doorway. Miles may have identified a governance structure. Miles appeared from under the blanket. So I'm right? You have a strong argument. That evening became the first time Nathaniel stayed for dinner. It was not arranged by chefs. It was soup, apple slices, small chairs, and 4 napkins, because Sophie believed every guest deserved a color. After the children slept, Elena told him about the preschool art show the next Friday at 3. I will be there, he said. In Queens, not your office. I will be there. He kept that promise by leaving a tense board meeting while an investor was still talking. At 2:58, he walked into the preschool room, slightly breathless, wearing the same suit he had worn to defend a new family benefits plan. Grace shouted, You came! So loudly that every adult turned. I said I would. Miles showed him a map of an imaginary city, where every train station had a reading room. Sophie showed him a painting of 3 purple circles and 1 tall blue rectangle. This is us, she said. Which one am I? The rectangle. You're still new. Nathaniel accepted this with the seriousness it deserved. Across the room, Elena redirected a nervous teacher, welcomed parents, settled a scheduling issue, and made everyone feel less small. Nathaniel watched her manage the room with warmth and authority, and he understood that competence did not always wear a title. Sometimes it wore yellow paint on one wrist and remembered every child's favorite pencil. When someone whispered that it must be nice to have a billionaire appear after the hard years, Elena's face tightened. Nathaniel felt the old instinct to correct the room, but Elena touched his sleeve. Not here, she said. So he turned to Grace and asked about her 6-legged clay horse. Defending someone, he learned, did not always mean making a speech. Sometimes it meant refusing to feed the room's appetite. But there would be a time for speeches. It came sooner than expected. Croswell's annual Foundation Gala was scheduled for the following month at the new Civic Arts Center. Before the engagement party, the evening had been intended as a glittering stage for Nathaniel and Vivian's future. Afterward, Vivian quietly withdrew. Celeste tried to cancel, and the board suggested reducing the event to a donor dinner. Nathaniel refused. The foundation supports family arts programs, he said. Then family arts programs will be centered. He asked Elena to consult on the community portion, not as a favor, not as a symbol, but as a paid professional. She refused twice, then accepted when he sent a contract with market rate compensation, decision authority, and no requirement to appear in photographs. This is annoyingly respectful, she told him. I am broadening my skill set. Do not become charming about paperwork. Too late. For 3 weeks, they worked side by side in conference rooms and community spaces. Elena redesigned the gala flow so donors would move through student exhibits before the dinner. She insisted the children from the foundation be treated as artists, not decorations. She added quiet rooms for families, clear signage, allergy-safe snacks, and transportation stipends for parents who could not afford rides. Nathaniel watched executives underestimate her, then slowly begin taking notes. One afternoon, his events director pulled him aside. Ms. Hart just solved a donor conflict we have had for 6 months, she said. I know. She's very good. Nathaniel looked through the glass wall at Elena, who was leaning over a floor plan, while Miles colored beside her, and Sophie arranged paperclips by color. Yes, he said. She is. The gala arrived on a rain-washed evening that made the city shine. The Civic Arts Center glowed with warm light, all glass and steel softened by children's paintings, small sculptures, and paper lanterns. Donors in tailored black moved slowly through displays made by children whose names were printed on museum-style cards. Parents stood nearby, proud and shy in equal measure. Grace wore a silver dress and announced that she was Assistant Director of Guests. Miles carried a folded map of the building. Sophie wore a blue ribbon and kept one smooth stone in her pocket for courage. Elena wore emerald green. Nathaniel saw her across the lobby and forgot, for one dangerous second, that patience was part of love. She saw him looking. "Do not say anything dramatic," she warned when he reached her. "I was going to ask if the signage arrived." Liar. A respectful liar. Her smile warmed him all the way through. The evening began beautifully. Donors listened, parents relaxed. Children explained art with the seriousness of ambassadors. Even Celeste arrived, dressed in black, her pearls luminous against her throat. She kept her distance from Elena, which Nathaniel appreciated as a beginning. Then the keynote donor went off script. He was an older man from a banking family, fond of tradition and the sound of his own voice. He praised the foundation, praised Crosswell, praised Nathaniel's leadership, then turned toward the children's exhibit and said, with a chuckle, that it was heartwarming to see modest communities lifted by the generosity of people who know how to lead. The room stiffened. Elena's expression did not change, but Nathaniel saw her hand close around her program. The donor continued, unaware. Some families simply need better examples. Grace, standing near the front with her six-legged clay horse, looked confused. A mother beside the exhibit lowered her eyes. Nathaniel felt the room begin to split along old lines. Giver and receiver. Polished and practical. Powerful and grateful. He stepped toward the podium. Elena caught his eye and gave one tiny shake of her head. Not anger, not here, not for you. Then she did something better. When the donor finished, Elena walked to the podium herself. She did not ask permission. She did not apologize for taking space. She smiled at the room as if every person in it belonged there equally. "Thank you, Mr. Alder," she said. "And thank you to every donor, parent, teacher, volunteer, and child who built this evening. I work with families who do not need to be lifted by anyone's image. They need doors that open properly, rooms that do not leak, safe transportation, patient teachers, and the dignity of being listened to before decisions are made about them." The room went silent. Nathaniel stood very still. Elena's voice remained warm. That was its power. "Tonight you have seen paintings, maps, sculptures, and stories made by young artists with complex ideas and bright courage. If you give, do not give because you imagine yourself above them. Give because the world becomes better when every child has room to create, and every parent can enter that room without feeling small." Applause began in the back, where the parents stood. Then the teachers joined. Then the donors, some slowly, some with a genuine feeling. Finally, the whole lobby filled with it. Grace clapped so hard her bow slipped sideways. Miles looked at Nathaniel. "Mommy used the good voice." Nathaniel's throat tightened. She did. The donor's face had gone red, but Elena stepped down without triumph. She returned to the exhibit table and helped Sophie retie her ribbon. Celeste approached Nathaniel. "She is impressive," she said quietly. Nathaniel did not look away from Elena. She always was. "I know." That made him turn. Celeste's face looked older than it had at the engagement party, less arranged. "I knew enough," she said. "About her, about you, about what I was preventing." "Why say this now?" Celeste's gaze moved to the children. Grace was explaining extra horse legs to Vivian, who had arrived as a donor and seemed genuinely delighted. Miles was showing Sophie how to fold the gala program into a tunnel, because those children looked at her while she spoke, as if she had placed the moon in the ceiling, Celeste said. And I realized I had mistaken control for care. Nathaniel waited. I owe her an apology, Celeste said. Yes. She may not accept it. Also yes. Celeste nodded once, as if accepting the terms of a difficult contract. Before she could move, the donor's nephew, a young board member with too much confidence, approached Nathaniel. Quite a speech from Ms. Hart, he said. Though perhaps not ideal optics, people may think the foundation has become personal. Nathaniel looked at him. It is personal. The young man blinked. Nathaniel turned toward the room, toward the donors, toward the parents, toward Elena and the children. He had spent years speaking flawlessly about growth, vision, and responsibility. He had rarely spoken plainly. He walked to the podium. Elena saw him and went still. He adjusted the microphone. When this evening was planned, he said, I thought the Croswell Foundation existed to demonstrate generosity. I was wrong. Generosity is not a performance from a higher floor. It is a responsibility to stand beside people whose work already matters. The room quieted. Ms. Hart reminded us of that tonight, not because she was invited here as a symbol, but because she is the reason this event has integrity. She listened before she planned. She protected families from becoming decorations. She made this room honest. Elena's eyes shone. Nathaniel looked briefly at Grace, Miles, and Sophie. I have learned recently that showing up late is not the same as showing up well. I cannot repair lost years with a speech, but I can say publicly what should never have been private in the first place. I am proud of my children. I am grateful to their mother, and I intend to spend the rest of my life earning the trust they have every right to give. Slowly. The room was completely silent for one breath. Then Grace shouted, "That's us!" Laughter broke the tension. Warm applause followed, not the polished kind Nathaniel knew, but something messier and kinder. Elena covered her mouth. Sophie hid behind her skirt. Miles looked thoughtful, then asked, "Does this mean we can see the roof garden?" Nathaniel laughed softly into the microphone. After dessert, he said. That night changed things, but not magically. There were still forms, lawyers, schedules, and careful conversations. Nathaniel completed legal acknowledgement with Elena's full consent and without press. He attended school meetings, learned bedtime songs, bought the crackers Miles considered structurally reliable, and stopped treating Elena's caution as rejection. He also learned that happiness, after disappointment, moved slowly. Some evenings, Elena let him stay for dinner. Some evenings, she needed space. Some mornings, she sent a photo of Grace wearing a cape to preschool. Some nights, she answered with tired, one-word replies, because family life had stretched every minute thin. He stopped taking distance personally. This, he realized, was love after damage. Not grand declarations, but consistent repair. By August, the triplets turned 5. Elena planned a small party in Riverside Park, with cupcakes, paper crowns, and a treasure hunt designed by Miles, but immediately taken over by Grace. Nathaniel arrived early with folding chairs, juice boxes, and strawberries chosen by hand. Sophie inspected the container, nodded, and allowed them onto the picnic table. Celeste came too, by invitation. She wore linen instead of satin and stood awkwardly near the edge of the blanket, until Grace marched up to her. Are you Nana Silver? Celeste glanced at Elena, alarmed. I believe I was. Are you still? Celeste lowered herself carefully to Grace's height. If you would like, I could try being Grandma Celeste. Grace considered this. Do you know horse facts? Not many. Then you need training. I accept. Nathaniel watched Celeste receive her first horse lesson from a 5-year-old in a paper crown. Elena stood beside him, laughing softly, and for once the laughter did not run away from them. Later, after the cupcakes were eaten and the treasure hunt had ended with Sophie discovering the prize because she had quietly watched everyone else search the wrong tree, Nathaniel found Elena near the river. The children were with Celeste and Aunt June, who had already informed Nathaniel that wealth did not excuse weak folding chair technique.
The sun was lowering. The water held strips of gold and steel.
Elena leaned on the railing. 5, she said softly. I can't believe it. I wish I'd been there for the first 4. I know. I will probably say that at every birthday. You probably will. Will that annoy you? A little. I'll try to vary the phrasing. She smiled. He stood beside her, close but not touching. Elena, he said, I love you. She closed her eyes. Nathaniel, I'm not asking you for an answer today. I'm not asking to move too fast, or to turn the children's birthday into a scene, or to pretend consistency has earned more than it has. I just need you to know that my love is no longer a memory I am arguing with. It is a choice I am making with my calendar, my name, my patience, and my future. Her eyes opened. They were wet, but she was smiling in that careful way that had once protected her, and now let him see the gate, not the wall.
That is a very Nathaniel way to say it.
Too much? A little. I can revise. Don't. She looked toward the children, then back at him. I love you too. But slowly. The world seemed to stop, without becoming quiet. Slowly is perfect, he said. And practically. Naturally. And if you ever schedule a romantic conversation through your assistant, I will reconsider everything. My assistant is expressly forbidden from romance. Elena laughed, and he reached for her hand. She let him take it. Their first kiss the second time came weeks later, in Elena's kitchen, after the children were asleep, and Nathaniel had repaired a loose cabinet handle under strict supervision. Elena looked at the handle, then at him, and said, You are becoming useful. High praise. Don't let it go to your head. He leaned in slowly enough for her to step back if she wanted. She did not. The kiss was gentle, brief, and full of every year they could not change, and every morning they still could. By winter, Nathaniel's penthouse no longer looked like a magazine spread. Colored pencils filled the drawer once reserved for linen napkins. A train map covered one glass wall with removable tape. Sophie's courage stones sat beside the espresso machine. Elena kept her apartment, because trust did not require surrender, and because Nathaniel respected that. She began spending weekends at the penthouse with the children. They made pancakes badly, watched rain move across the city, and built a life with both tenderness and receipts. One evening, almost a year after the engagement party, Crosswell hosted a smaller foundation dinner at the same Grand Lydian ballroom. Not an engagement party, not a performance, a celebration of the new Hart Family Arts Center, named after Elena only after she lost a vote she had not known Nathaniel had arranged. She was annoyed for 3 days. Secretly, she cried when she saw the sign. That night, she wore blue again. Grace, Miles, and Sophie walked in ahead of her, now 5½ and very aware of the power of coordinated outfits. Nathaniel waited near the entrance, not at the center of the room. He had learned the difference. Grace ran to him first. We came with Mum. I see that. Miles held up a revised drawing. This one showed a tall man, a woman in blue, 3 children, a grandmother with silver hair, Aunt June with a large purse, and a small penguin in the corner for reasons no one questioned. The label beneath the tall man no longer said, Maybe Dad. It said, Dad. Nathaniel looked at the word until it blurred. Sophie tugged his sleeve. Are you sad? He crouched. No, sweetheart. very happy. Your happy face is wet. It does that sometimes. She nodded as if this were acceptable adult behavior. Elena reached him last. You okay? She asked softly. He handed her the drawing. She saw the label and pressed one hand to her heart. For a moment, they stood in the same ballroom where everything had shattered open. The chandeliers were still bright. The marble still shone. The room still held wealth, reputation, expectation, and all the polished rules Nathaniel had once mistaken for life. But this time, he was not standing beside the wrong future. He was standing beside Elena. While Grace corrected Idona's horse knowledge, Miles explained penguin governance to Vivian over sparkling water, and Sophie quietly placed a strawberry on Nathaniel's plate, because she still believed sad-looking people needed snacks. Nathaniel looked at Elena. Do you remember what you said the night you left? He asked. I said many things. You said you didn't know what happened next. Her eyes softened. I remember. I think I know now. Do you? He nodded toward the children, toward the art displayed along the walls, toward his mother laughing awkwardly as Grace taught her to say canter with authority, toward the life that had arrived not as a clean victory, but as a second chance that demanded humility every day. This, he said. Elena slipped her hand into his. This is a good beginning. Across the room, the quartet began to play something soft and hopeful. Nathaniel did not make a toast. He did not need the room to witness every feeling. He only bent toward Elena and whispered, Thank you for coming that night. She leaned against him, just enough. Thank you for finally opening the door. And Nathaniel Cross, who had once invited his former love to an engagement party to prove he had moved on, stood in the glow of the life he had almost missed, holding the hand of the woman who had brought the truth with her, and 3 children who had turned, maybe, into home.